Hello, guys. My name is Sergio Cone. I'm here in Bucharest at the Banking for Zero International FinTech Conference. Near me is Mr. Brett King. Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Brett.
You're welcome.
Uh, Lovely, very interesting in speech you delivered earlier
Thank you.
today. I have a couple of questions.
Please.
Let's start
I'm
by
sure I have some answers.
for sure by answering you. We have WeChat in China.
Yes.
They managed to get to almost 200 million clients in less than 5 years.
Yes.
Why cannot we replicate that in Europe?
So for mobile payments specifically, so if you look actually at WeChat and
In general, it's hard to
Alipay
get clients, new
combined,
clients.
It's 600 or 700 million. In fact, Alipay has 1.2 billion people on their extended platform. So a lot. And scalability is really important. So one of the reasons we haven't replicated this in the West as yet is we've tried to take the old systems and put them on mobile phones. So Apple Pay, as an example, or Samsung Pay or Google Pay, we try to put a plastic card inside the phone. That's the paradigm. But in China, they completely went around the system. You don't need a point of sale. You don't need a plastic card. You don't need a signature. As a merchant, all you needed was a QR code to be able to accept a payment. Now you can pay with your face.
They're actually skipping the tokenization process.
Yes, they skipped that. And so that, as a result, they've been able to scale much faster. And network effect has been a lot stronger. So the reason they understood that social media was a great platform for payments, but they had to find the right use case to start. So in China, they use the red packets, which they have at Chinese New Year. So Chinese New Year, everyone sends red packets to each other. There used to be little red envelopes that you put money inside, and you give this as a present. That's instead of like Christmas. They have the Chinese New Year, and you get cash.
We don't have it in
You get
Europe.
cash as a present, right? And so they use network effect of social media to be able to provide digital versions of the red packets, and it took off. When people sort of understood they could get money from a red packet on a phone, then they started to think about payments for merchants, and it was able to scale up. But an important element was families would start to use this together, or networks of people, friends. This is how they started. And so it was able to scale up very rapidly. And that's what we've missed in the West, is we don't have this person-to-person culture around mobile payments that they have in China and in Kenya with M-Pesa, for example. We think of it like a plastic card equivalent. And so if you miss that P2P element, and you don't use the networking effect of the phone, then you won't scale as fast.
We like it or not, China is coming over.
By 2030, I've predicted most of the world will be on Chinese mobile wallets. Yes.
What will happen with international schemes like Visa or MasterCard? They will be history or just marginal?
Marginalized. They'll decline slowly unless they start to play a different game. Visa and MasterCard can still be relevant for the future, but they have to change from being about tokenization of a card to becoming data companies. And they have to be, identity platforms. They have to be payments data platforms more than just... and the first thing they have to do is they have to get rid of the point of sale restriction. Because if you need a physical point of sale to be able to transact, you cannot scale at the same rate that the competitors from the Chinese mobile wallets are putting in. So this is what I'd be looking for to see if they'll survive.
In this process, from migrating from banking product to banking experiences, do you think we'll lose some branches or just some banking departments?
So since 2008, most in the Western world, we've seen a steady decline in branches. In the US, it's 2 to 3% a year. In some other economies, it's been faster. Some other economies have been slightly slower.
In US, there is a special law. You cannot close branches, actually.
Right. This is called the law is called the Community Reinvestment Act. We were talking about this at dinner the other night. And so this is a requirement in the United States. So this has to change, I think, obviously. It was built for financial inclusion, but branches in the US have been shown shown not to contribute towards financial inclusion. In fact, in the US, about 20% of households still don't have basic bank accounts. But this is not because of access to a branch. It's because of the identity requirements to open a bank account, a driver's license or a passport or this type of identity requirements, particularly since the Patriot Act came into play after 9/11 in the US. And this has made identity requirements steeper for getting access to a bank account, and this is why people are excluded in the United States. But we could fix this with a good identity schema built on data and with mobile technology. If you look at India, you look at Kenya, the mobile phone has been much, much more effective at creating financial inclusion than
This is
branches
the
ever
main
were.
instrument of financial inclusion.
The
It
mobile
works
phone.
in Asia, supposed
sure.
to work in
Africa,
Europe too.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason why it couldn't work anywhere. So by 2030, I think, 2025, more people will have a basic bank account on their phone than have ever visited a bank branch.
Interesting. My next question: what you will call a bank in 2030, in 10 years from now?
So I think this is very interesting. We have grown up with the bank being a place that we used to go and visit. So I don't think we will identify a bank like that in the future. I think banking will be something that's predominantly technology based. So your primary banking relationship will be on your phone. There may be a bank behind that, so a bank brand, but increasingly you'll identify the capabilities of the bank with what you can do on the phone. And so, and not just the phone, with your voice, with a voice speaker, with an AI, with smart glasses in a few years, these sorts of technologies. This is how we'll identify my bank does this, my bank does that for me through the technology layer. And so it may be that you don't know who your bank is. It may be that Google or Apple with their OS, or Facebook with their OS, or Amazon with their operating system, or Alibaba with their operating system, actually provides you with the day-to-day banking services, but they aggregate this up from banking partners that they have around the world. You may not actually know who your bank is that you're working with through these technologies.
In order to survive, do you think that banks should copy Apple model?
Well, unless they're going to start making
approach.
smartphones and start making voice AI speakers for the home, they can't, And so their best bet right now is to work with the tech giants and partner with them. And that's what we're seeing as a trend, Amazon has done this, Apple and Google have done this as well.
Who will be the next the biggest bank in the next 10 years?
The biggest bank in the world? Well, I think it'll be a technology player. Right now, it looks like it's going to be Ant Financial. So Ant Financial at their last funding round was valued at about $150 billion. That makes them bigger than Deutsche Bank and Citibank in terms of market capitalization. They have already 1.2 billion customers around the world because they've invested in M-Pesa in Kenya. They've invested in Kakao in South Korea, in Globe, Gcash in the Philippines, in Paytm in India. So they're in these wallets all over the place. So they're sort of a super wallet ecosystem. And then they have the largest savings or deposit product in the world called Yuibao. And that's, I spoke about that at the conference this morning. About a third of Chinese adult population is on a Yuibao savings account. And so they're already, by many metrics, they're already the biggest bank in terms of customers and deposits in the world. And so I think they are the one to beat. They're already in 100 countries. They tried to get into the United States buying MoneyGram. Trump stopped them. Maybe we'll see
for now.
For now. Maybe we'll see if that, after the 2020 election, if that changes.
And my last question is related to artificial intelligence and their impact in banking. Now we can ask Alexa or Siri to pay for our bill. When can we ask Alexa to change our bank account?
This will be good. So I think probably, within about 3 years, you'll be able to you'll certainly be able to access credit. So you'll be able to ask Alexa, for example, you say, hey, Alexa, can I afford to buy a new car? And Alexa will say, based on if you've got the certain skills enabled, it will say, based on your current spending, you'll be able to afford a new car in 6 months if you save this much every month. But we have a credit offer for you today where we can enable you to buy a car today. Would you like to accept it? And so it'll be a voice-based activation process. And again, you may not even know who the credit offering is from, but then it will automatically link to your bank account through that voice OS system.
Few words, please, about your new book you are working on.
After Bank 4.0?
After Bank.
So I'm working on a new book. It's called The Rise of Techno-Socialism. It should be out mid-2020. And it looks at how society is going to change as a result of the inequality we see around the world and the economic uncertainty that comes with that, the protests that created the Trump movement, Brexit movement, the Hong Kong protests, Bolsonaro in LATAM, in Brazil, and so forth. And then looking at artificial intelligence and climate change as two new stresses that will enter, create more and more economic uncertainty in the world, and how we need to change our political and economics and social approach to dealing with this uncertainty at a geographical and sort of societal level. And so this book really looks at how life will adapt in societies based on these three major forces we're seeing. And we have some pretty big predictions around that. So I'm working on this with an economist friend of mine, Dr. Richard Petty out of Hong Kong. And we got Arnold Schwarzenegger doing the foreword for us. So this is going to be a big part of my year next year, launching The Rise of Techno-Socialism.
Oh, sounds great.
Thank you.
Best of luck, Mr.
Thank you very much. Great to be with you guys in Bucharest.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
all.
you.